Today we're going to look at another Soul Simple life shift that has to do with identity. So we've talked about awakening with 2 videos, and yesterday's video, or the last video, was about identity in terms of ego and essence. So today I want to look at the shift from partiality in terms of roles to fullness and wholeness in terms of soul. So from role to soul. And here, before I even dive in, I want to acknowledge that I am actually borrowing language that I first heard from Parker Palmer. He's an amazing teacher. I highly recommend his book, A Hidden Wholeness. I'll try to remember to put a link below. And one of the quotes that's from that book is, Parker says, if our roles were more deeply informed by the truth that is in our souls, the general level of sanity and safety would rise dramatically. And I really find his language around this concept to be very useful because it's easy to remember role and soul. And so I just want to riff on this just a bit, and then I'll share with you a life practice that I recommend for this shift. So we're looking at identity overall, and how do we identify ourselves? How do we see ourselves? How do others see us? And often we get trapped in this idea of roles. You know, I'm a mother, I'm a career woman, I am a daughter, I am a sister, I am a person who is a volunteer who serves on this particular board. You get it. I'm an athlete. I'm, a painter. I'm a writer. All of the various ways we use the labels that we use and the roles that we assign to who we are. And in many ways, these roles are reductions. In almost every case, they are reductions to the whole of who we are. And so the key here, the shift is, so like, how have we done it before? We have identified ourselves wholly as these roles that we live and fulfill in our lives. And they change, yes, but we often, that's literally how we see ourselves. I can remember when my son was younger, and particularly when I was a single mom for many, many years, and it was like, I'm a mother, that's it. Because that was the most important thing in my life. And it took a while to be able to see that I was much more than that, because that was one aspect of how I was showing up. And when I was able to see the fullness, I think we've come a long way societally, by the way, on this particular thing. But when I was able to see the fullness, I could bring the richer aspects of all the other parts of who I was to being a mother. And it enriched that role, that way I was showing up. And then likewise, I could there's value, of course, to seeing the role, the ways that we are engaged in a particular way that we show up in our lives. But again, it's sort of the idea of the partiality or the reduction versus the whole and the fullness of who we are. So when we have seen ourselves in the past, in terms of roles, what can happen is like there's a real fragmentation, and we lose the wholeness, the soul of who we are. And so the Soul Simple life practice here is simply to ask, in all of these various roles or partial expressions of who we are, how can I bring my whole self and my soul self to this experience, to this role, to this particular expression of who I am? How can I bring soul into that experience? So I'm going to leave it there for today, but really want to encourage you to take this deeper. You can look at Parker Palmer's book, A Hidden Wholeness, and you can explore all the roles that you play, all of the various ways that you show up, and look at each of those and ask yourself, how can I bring the fullness of who I am into this experience? And begin, when you are in each experience, to find ways to remind yourself of the wholeness and fullness of who you are, because it's going to enrich what you can bring to that particular expression, to that particular relationship or experience that you are choosing in your life.